If you started asking questions, you already have the courage to finish. You already do. So continue to walk and be courageous.
Welcome to episode number 44 of the 100 Successful Women, a Conversation to Inspire series. Thank you so much for tuning in to the channel. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe to our channel for more videos in the future. So this episode, I would like you to welcome Chandrika D Phea, an ordained reverend, a wellness coach, and an inspiring author behind the book, Lord, I Don't Want to Die a Christian, My Journal and Journey to Freedom. In this episode, Chandrika shares her transformative journey from a background steeped in devoted Christian faith to embracing curiosity and authenticity. So, as a triathlete and passionate advocate for outdoor experience, Chandrika not only empower her community's Black women through events like Bikes and Breakfast and Melanin Miles More, but also delve into profound questions about faith, spirituality, and self-discovery. I thoroughly enjoy our conversation together. So let's dive in to hear Chandrika's powerful narrative and gain wisdom from her journey. Hey, how are you, Chandrika?
I am grateful to be here. Thank you. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to have you on here as well. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to you for your time and saying yes to be part of this 100 Successful Women.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's a powerful theme, and I'm grateful to be contributing.
So one of the things that I always ask the guests of this 100 Successful Women is that I know that you are playing various roles in your life, and we're going to talk about your roles that you're playing later. But before we go further into that, one question that I always ask is that who is really Chandrika Phea at your
Chandrika Phea, authentic. Chandrika Phea is fascinated with freedom. Chandrika Phea is in pursuit of the greatest freedom available, attainable to her. Chandrika Phea loves the outdoors because that is where I experience the free that I am. So there's a lot centered around being free and a lot centered around being authentic as it relates to me and who I am at the core.
Yeah, I love that. Everyone would thrive to have that freedom. And yeah, we're going to talk about freedom and authenticity a little bit later. So, Chandrika, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how your upbringings that shaped your early life?
I was born into a Christian family. I offered that I was born a Christian because of course, if my parents were, Christianity would be my inheritance. And so born into a Christian family, a Black Christian family as well. So Black culture, Black Christianity, Black church is what shaped me. My parents were ordained, at least ministers at the time, I believe, at least at the time I was born, but definitely by the time I left the house as a young woman. Grew up in church, grew up leading in church, went to school, went to elementary, middle, and high school. And that was most of my life. Went to church, went to school. I'm the oldest of 4 girls. I have a degree in biblical studies. I have had an opportunity to do ministry in various ways, played different ministry roles. But one that revolutionized my life forever was doing missions work in China. I lived there 2 years, and so yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
Yeah, I forgot to ask you, where about are you in the world right now?
I'm in Georgia. I'm in Columbus, Georgia.
Columbus, Georgia. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit about your early stages of your life. So you mentioned about having that missionary work in China. Living in China as a Christian missionary, you say it revolutionized your life. So can you share with us how was that and what's your experience during those 2 years?
Well, people ask me all the time, what happened in China that made you, start asking questions about Christianity? And I often answer with, it isn't what happened, it's what didn't happen. It isn't what was there, but what wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And in China, Christianity is not embraced very popularly by the government. And so I had to be careful about how I was presenting myself. The way I present myself, or the way I presented myself here in the States before going to China as a Christian, wouldn't be acceptable in China. And so I had to figure out, how to present myself. But then I also had to figure out who I was as myself, because before I went, that's all I was a Christian. That was the theme of my life before I went to China, before I moved there. For those 2 years, I carried my Bible everywhere I went. It was my identity. Christianity was my identity. And so now I'm in a country, I live in a country where I can't wear Christianity. I can't be a member of a Christian church. I can't wear the clothing of Christianity, announcing that I'm a Christian, and all of those things. And so I didn't know who I was without all of the roles I played in church. I am also ordained. When I went to China, I was at least a licensed minister, now or an ordained reverend. And it mattered nothing in China, those accomplishments. And so I had to figure out who I was without being able to present myself in all of the layers and roles of Christianity that I played here in the States.
Mm-hmm. When was that when you were in China? Was that just a few years ago? Was that
I know
long?
I know I think people think when I tell this story, it was yesterday. And actually it's probably been now between, I want to just be kind and say between 15 and 20 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe a little shorter. Maybe I'll say 15 to 18 years ago.
Wow, that
Um,
was the time when that wasn't it's even stricter.
yeah, right. And so yeah, that's what I mean by revolutionize my life, that to the point of when I talk about it, you would think it happened 3 years ago, 5 years ago, but I've been back in the States long enough to own a home for 9 years. And so yeah, I'll be 50 next year. I was in my late 30s when
Mm-mm.
I or middle 30s when I went to China.
Mm. So what when you decided to go to China at the time, was that your own decision?
By that you mean,
Do you chose to go there by yourself or is that sent by the church?
oh, I wasn't sent by the church. I was hired by an organization
Mm-mm.
who cared about the abortion rate and the suicide rate,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to send us there, not even to be a Christian missionary specifically. They sent us there to just love students.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they believed that students were not experiencing genuine, authentic love. And that's why they were in the positions they were in, having to make the really tough decision of taking their own lives or aborting a baby. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we were told was just go love students. I taught freshman college students at a university in central China. And but what led to me it becoming more of a mission or missions work as Christianity would define it was I ended up doing a Bible study for 2 years in my apartment. And that kind of happened because students, for some reason, interpreted their interaction with me or interpreted or saw in me that I was happy. And they wanted to know why I was so happy, what made me happy. Interestingly enough, I gave them the answer Christianity taught me to give. And that was that I was a Christian and that Jesus had saved my life and that I had a relationship with God. And that opened up the door to then offer a Bible study to students who were intrigued by what they believed to be me being happy.
So yeah, you did mention that it's about your identity as a Christian, that you probably it's not easy for you to express that identity or to show your real identity at the time. So how do you get around it, or what are some of the things that you do, or some of the experience that you have?
There was no getting around it. I didn't try to get around it necessarily. I just kind of started to evaluate, how do I be what I believe versus, again, wearing it. In the States or in a lot of other different places, you get to wear a crucifix and not be seen as suspicious. In other states, you get to wear clothing that says, whatever it is you believe. I had a jacket that had "God's got your back" on it. And I wore it proudly, here and in the States and in China. I wore it proudly, but what was happening was I was getting followed by the police, or they were checking my emails, or they were checking going through my trash can, or tapping my phone because they wanted to see what I was doing there, what I was really coming forward from. And I think they thought I was trying to start or go to an underground church. And so I had to take the jacket off. If I was going to be there and kind of live in some kind of peace, then I had to figure out how to be the things I was believing rather than presenting it on the outside. Yeah.
So got you. So you did mention that you host the 2 years Bible studies for the freshman students there. So it must be something that is different for you at time. It's I would say it's a different experience for you. Could you maybe share some of the memorable moments that you have during that time, and what are some of the insight that you got during those 2 years?
Those are really great questions. Too many memories to choose from. I think my biggest memory is full of curiosity and fascination, but also regret. And that is, I graduated my students after we finished reading the book of Luke in the Bible. It took us 2 years to finish it, with all of our breaks, the Chinese holidays that were celebrated, along with Western holidays that were celebrated, and then there's summertime. So it took us 2 years to get through that book. And we got through it, we finished, and I graduated my students. And one of the things I did for their graduation, if you want, I should put this in quotation marks, because I had 7 students who came to my apartment, mostly on a weekly basis. And we went through this book. I wasn't teaching Bible study to a whole campus of students, but students who were interested had to sneak to my apartment, if you will, sneak their Bibles to my apartment. And we went through the book of Luke that way. They had Chinese English Bibles, and I had my English Bible. One of the things I did was I paid for us to have professional photos. My students, all of them were poor. They had never had professional photos before. It was fascinating to see their wonder and their reaction, their tears of joy at looking at themselves on professional pictures, things that we take for granted. They took photos of the photos. It's crazy. They set my students, particularly my male students, they set the pictures up in a way that they could take photos of the photos, and the photos were theirs. So it was just, I let them be. I didn't. But I took it. The other thing is, I took photos of them looking at the photos, taking photos. So everybody was photoing. So, that was fun and fascinating. I also gave them MP3 players that had the book of Luke being read. And I watched them put earphones in their ears and listen and sit there in tears. Just again, the things that so many people in the world take for granted. My students were crying about photos, professional photos that we took together, and you would think they weren't even there for it. But the other part I regret is the part of introducing them to the idea of salvation, to the idea of Jesus dying for their sins. Because after I got back from China, I realized that somewhere in my own spiritual space, I had evolved, and out of that evolution came this curiosity that pushed me, forced me, moved me to ask questions of what Christianity taught me. And that included salvation. And so if I could go back again, I would I would answer the question differently, actually. I wouldn't have answered the question of being happy because of Christianity. I probably would have asked them a question, my students a question. What do you see? What makes you think or believe I'm happy? And create a relationship based off that. But again, all I knew was Christianity, so I gave them the answer Christianity taught me. And that led me to create this Bible study, which also led me to asking them or probing them or presenting them to my students an opportunity to say or quote the sinner's prayer. And now I have questions about it myself.
Wow. So have you do you still contact them after you left?
Yes, we did for a while stay in contact after we left, but I still hadn't arrived to the question about salvation yet. That had been a journey. You have to, you kind of go through asking yourself these questions, but also seeking resolve. So there's this journey of prayer and meditation and reading other things and reading other material and doing other research and connecting with other people who may have questions. So it's a journey. It's a journey that I'm still on. So while we were in contact, I hadn't reached the resolve I've come to today about the necessity for salvation. So now at this point, I haven't spoken to any of my students. I hope that they look me up, Google or, or YouTube, and just kind of listen to some of the things, some of these interviews, some of these conversations that I'm having.
Well, that's such an amazing.
One thing I am for sure about that I don't have questions about is that I didn't teach my students all of Christianity. I think the part I taught the most was just love. And the way I did that was not through the Bible study. The way I did that was my constant and consistent showing up for them. Whether it was in a Bible study or whether it was just a fun day out. Often we would just go to dinner. Let's not do Bible study today. Let's go to dinner. Let's not do Bible study today. Let's go down to the fair and paying for all of us to go. And the fun and having fun and laughing and watching my students, indulge in every game and just kind of release the pressure of performing, as is often in Asian culture, particularly with my students. Performing, was a big deal. And so just releasing the pressure to perform and having fun was, once a lot of the ways I just showed them love. And I don't regret.
Yeah, that's such an amazing job that you've been doing for them, because that's like having fun for them is probably something that they don't normally do in the culture. And being you there, bringing them out for the fair is something that being there for them, it's something amazing that you did for them as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I saw that in one of your bio, you mentioned about your sense of curiosity being inhale and later exhale um from returning to this your own Western religion. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit about this what do you mean from
Um, again, growing up Christian, particularly in a Black home here in the States, it there is no, well, there was, when I was growing up, no room for asking questions. That was curiosity wasn't modeled in front of me. I think I could probably say the same for all of us as it relates to Christianity. We just did what we were told, and I imagine we did what we were told because my parents did what they were told. They did what they believed, or accepted what they believed as truth. And so we accepted what we were taught as truth. They accepted what they were taught as truth. So did we. I never saw too much of asking questions of what they had been taught. So it's not something we did either.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I went to China that I believe, was particularly around religion and Christianity and spirituality. It wasn't until I went to China that my sense of curiosity inhaled, it woke up. And I think that was both manifested in a physical sense and spiritual sense. I had never lived in another country. And so I was amazed, and always eyes were just always big because I was seeing and experiencing culture, food, art, history,
Mm-hmm.
the ancient nature of China. I was experiencing so much that was new. But I think also a reflection of that, or that experience also became my spiritual life as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 2 years, holding that exhale. It was just like, it's like, it was a 2 year, one exhale. And when I got back to the States and went back to Western religion as I know it, I was not happy. I felt like I couldn't, I felt, and I started going outside a little more. And, and my spiritual life just began to, and, I feel like that manifested in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it manifested in continuing, or the beginning of asking questions again of what Christianity taught me. And also, because you can ask questions and not have a resolve.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the process of not being afraid or being courageous enough to ask questions of what Christianity taught me. But then there's also being courageous enough to seek results. And then there's another courage in writing it. And then there's another courage in publishing it. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's been a 2 years then till now. Inhale, exhaling, still today, still exhaling, as I press into or work out that muscle of curiosity.
Wow, that's a lot of things going on for you at the time as well, and that's the reason why you have this debut book is titled "Lord, I Don't Want to Die Christian." So it's kind of like your journal and journey towards
Right.
freedom that you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation.
Right.
So, like, is that the reason that inspired you to pen down your journal?
What inspired me to publish the journal,
Mm-mm.
if by that you mean publish, what inspired me is I kept thinking I just couldn't be the only one. I couldn't be the only one who was curious about God, and thinking there was more to this idea of God than Christianity would have me believe. The other thing that inspired me to pen it is my own niece and nephew, who are also, of course, thankfully influenced by my parents. But I know they are also growing up in a world that my parents didn't grow up in and I didn't grow up in. And so they are going to be allowed, they are allowed to research. They're allowed to ask questions and be curious because information is so it's at their fingertips.
That's right.
Whereas it wasn't for my parents, and it was, a lot of my life, it wasn't there. So now my niece and nephew are growing up in the internet age, and they have access to information that we don't. And I wanted them to know that someone in their family, when they start to ask questions of, what their grandparents have believed for so long, I want them to know it's okay that I have to have questions too. That someone in their family who is ordained, who has a degree in the subject, that even I still have questions. And it's okay to press into this idea of God. It's okay to entertain the idea of having a relationship with a God of love, etc., and still have questions. It's okay. So yeah, that's the inspiration behind writing and publishing the book.
So what can the readers expect from the book?
They can expect a raw documentation of my journey. When you open the book, you will find journal entries dated, and you will find PSs in a lot of the journal entries, because what I do is I go back and read some of my journal entries and realize I don't think that way anymore. So I write a PS in the journal, and I write now what I think about what I wrote. I write about the regret of telling a young lady to read scripture after her boyfriend broke her heart. When I know I have my own story around being heartbroken by the man that I fell in love with. But I sent her to scripture and tell her, instead of telling her my own story. So I write about that regret. And then I continue and go on to talk about or revisit a lot of the theology that Christianity taught me. As I journey through my own spiritual evolution, asking myself what I believe about this and what I believe about that, and documenting those questions and also documenting the resolve. Sometimes I just document the question. I've come to my own resolve, but I think it's fair to document the question, let the reader see that I documented the question, that I was bold enough to ask and document and publish the question, but leave the reader to come there to their own resolve, And so that happens several times in the book as well. Readers can expect, to hopefully experience empathy from a believer. As I believe, Christianity has uninvited empathy. So after deciding I didn't want to die a Christian, I kind of ran into my empathic self that I didn't know existed, because what I believed came first. So, what Christianity taught me was a priority over what I feel for other people and other people's situations and other people's lived experiences. And so, readers will find, hopefully, the empathic Chandrika. Also, after every journal entry is a page for the reader to journal as well, so that you are joining me on the journey. One of the things that is important to do if you're interested in my work is get a hard copy of the book, because the digital version does not have that. So if you're interested in my journey, if you're interested because you're there as well, grab a physical copy and journal along with me through the book. Yeah.
That's such I would say quite an impactful journey as well. And so if to give one line to summarize the book, what would you say?
Ooh, you ask. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and some of these questions I've never encountered. One line to summarize the book. At the end of the book, I say the stripping continues.
Stripping.
And by that I mean the disrobing of religion continues. I'll always not be dying a Christian. I have been a Christian more of my life than I have been asking questions of Christianity. So I'll always not be dying a Christian. The stripping continues, and often it continues in these kinds of conversations. So stay tuned, Google my name. I don't say that because I'm popular, but I say that to say that it will lead you to some other conversations about where I am now versus where I was when the book was published. I'm still evolving. Still.
Yeah. Constantly learning and growing.
Yes. Staying curious.
Yeah.
You cannot be curious and not learn. So I think that, again, that muscle of curiosity has to be worked as just as much as any other muscle.
Yeah, that's so true. Curiosity is the way for us to grow as well, right? Because once we have that curiosity, we then dare to find out like what you are doing.
Yes. I think too, curiosity also writes the permission slip to love people. You cannot love people and know everything. You cannot love people and have the corner or life cornered and figured out. I've yet to see that work. So you have to stay curious to love people despite the differences. And you won't know the differences if you're not curious. But you won't know how to love people if you don't embrace the differences. You won't know the differences if you don't ask questions. You can't ask questions if you're not curious.
Definitely, 100%, I'll say that. So you say that, where can people find you online, or where can they get a copy of your book?
The book is pretty much everywhere. Definitely on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes and Nobles. I'm on every major social media platform. Definitely, that's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, the things. Where else? I'm on TikTok, just the things, And so I can be found there. If you want to have a conversation, reach out to me. Let me know where you learned of me from, so that I know this is not a scam. And I'll reach back. I'm always open to having conversations, and I don't charge for conversations.
Wow. So what's next for Chandrika?
Oh gosh, conquering a new challenge. Again, I am in pursuit of the greatest experience of freedom that belongs to me. I won't say I have something on my mind. I won't say it, but it's, for me, writing a book was huge. I don't know about anyone else, but it was a big deal. It is award-winning. It is best-selling. I did not mean to write a best-selling book. I did not mean to write a 3-time award-winning book. I didn't. And so I feel like I conquered that. It's time to conquer something else. And I'm looking to spend my 50th year pursuing, again, one of the greatest experiences of freedom that belongs to me.
Yeah, you mentioned about conquering the challenges. Can you give our listeners out there, what are some of the tips to conquer these challenges, or challenges in their own life?
I don't know if I have a tip more than I have a warning. Be ready to be on a level that no one in your circle is on. Be ready to gain an energy that you have never had before, because you were keeping, you you are working at keeping people in your life that can't go where you're going. I had the experience, energy that I have because I have had the opportunity to let go of relationships that cannot go where I want to go. So it's a good thing. I want to make sure we understand that, often when people exit your life, it can feel like heartbreak. But one of the things that I have experienced is a return of energy, because if you're serious about relationships, friendships, family ships, and all of those things, if you're serious about them, if you take it serious, there's a lot of energy that goes into that. And so I am grateful for a return of energy, because there are people who have stepped away, because where I want to go, they aren't willing. Of course, it's not surprising. I've announced to the world. I didn't know I was announcing to the world when I wrote the book, but I announced to the world that I don't want to die a Christian. Of course, there's a lot of Christians that I knew before this book that don't have the courage to stick around. And I'm grateful for them and their departure, because it has returned to me energy I was giving to that relationship.
That's such a bonus, that like courage that you put out to the world, and then of course not everyone's going to walk the same path with you. Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, just to let go of the things that probably, or the things that you can't control, and focus on what you think is right for you.
Amen.
Wow, I love that. One thing that I'm curious at, would you go back to China one day again?
I wouldn't go long term.
My
family is in Oklahoma. My parents are, all of us are aging. I have a niece and a nephew who are growing. So they already feel like I'm too far. And I'm just in Georgia. So I don't want to go anywhere else to live yet. Maybe in the very distant future. But as of now, I would go and visit, but I would not go and live again.
Yeah, of course. Stay close to your family, right?
Yeah, I have to, as the oldest, especially.
Yeah,
especially.
That's true. So thank you so much for your time with us, Chandrika. That's a lot of beautiful sharing that you shared with us. And one question that I would like to ask is that, reflecting on your life journey so far, so what advice would you offer to other women out there? Because this is the 100 Successful Women podcast. That's probably exploring their own belief, and also maybe seeking their personal freedom in their life as well.
It takes courage. If you have already started exploring your personal beliefs and seeking for that freedom, know you already have the courage to complete. You already have the courage to come to resolves and manifest those resolves in your life. Even if you haven't completed that journey, even if you haven't come to that resolve, if you started asking questions, you already have the courage to finish. You already do. So continue to walk and be courageous. Something I say, I think it's in my email tag. Water contained creates resistance. I am 60%. So if you ever find yourself being resistant, it's probably because you're being contained, and you weren't created to be contained. And so if you find yourself being told that you are rebellious and obstinate, it's because you're being contained. And I'm 60, my body, as scientists would have it say, I am between 60 and 70% water. My body is. So if you try to contain me, you're going to experience resistance. And so water contained creates resistance. I am 60%.
Wow.
If you don't want to experience resistance, don't contain me.
Wow. That's such a powerful and that's so true, right? And yes,
Yes.
that's it's amazing. And if you really think of that, and it's like water, yeah, we are made up of water. It's like the
Right.
big part of it. Mm,
Right.
so true. Be courageous, and then yeah, have the courage to be yourself. And thank you
Yes.
for that, Chandrika. I have definitely learned so much from what you're sharing. And then be bold and you have the courage to be yourself. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's very inspiring. So before we wrap up the session today, Chandrika, is there anything that you would like me to ask that I haven't asked yet?
No, ma'am. I'm good. I don't I love authentic organic conversation.
Mm, yeah, thank you so much once again for your time and appreciate your wisdom. And we're looking forward to follow your journey as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye.